Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on KAJ, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Don Fisher. A red flag warning is in effect for northwestern Montana, particularly in the Flathead, Glacier, and Kootenai areas. For more on that, we'll send it over to meteorologist Russ Thomas for what that means for fires burning in the area. Russ?
Yeah, thanks, Don. Here's what we've got for you. Take a look right behind me here. We do have that red flag warning. It's not for all of western Montana. It truly is for northwest Montana. So we're talking about, of course, those areas of their West Glacier region covered, as well as Sealy, Swan region. And well, the issue is going to be the winds. West-southwest 10 to 20, gusting up to 30, humidity levels 11 to 20%. Now, as we move toward midnight, those humidity levels will increase and our winds will slowly start to die down. So again, for the rest of western Montana, we do have an air quality alert in effect. And of course, we'll have your complete forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Russ. And drugs are a suspected factor in a crash that led to the deaths of 2 women in Kalispell over the weekend. A head-on crash happened near Glacier Park International Airport just before noon on Sunday. Flathead County Sheriff Chuck Curry says 32-year-old Holly Richards of Bozeman and 40-year-old Linda Cortez of Riverside, California died in the crash. The Missoula Highway Patrol says that Richards was driving northbound while Contras was driving southbound on Highway 2 when Richards crossed into a southbound lane, colliding with Contras head-on. Both women were pronounced dead at the scene. The Montana Highway Patrol says alcohol and speed are not suspected to be factors in the crash, but drugs are. The accident brings the number of people killed on Montana's roads this year to 133. Another 2 wildfires will help receive funding from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. U.S. Senator Jon Tester announced Tuesday that FEMA disaster assistance will be coming in to help fight the Highway 200 complex fires in Sanders County and the Moose Peak fire in Sanders and Lincoln counties. The resources come in the form of a fire management assistance grant and makes FEMA funding available to pay 75% of the state's eligible firefighting costs. Fire management assistance grants can assist with expenses from field camps, equipment, material supplies, along with the mobilization and demobilization activities. The grants do not provide assistance to individual homeowners or business owners and do not cover other infrastructure damages caused by the fires. Senator Tester announced Sunday that the Alice Creek fire near Lincoln, the Rice Ridge fire near Sealy Lake, and the West Fork fire near Libby would also receive help from FEMA. Federal money has also been allocated for the Lolo Peak fire late last month. And the Sprague fire, which has burned more than 14,000 acres in West Glacier, saw minimal growth overnight. The fire grew by about 750 acres yesterday, but improved visibility allowed 2 Canadian super scoopers to drop water from Lake McDonald onto the fire. Fire officials say the scoopers made good progress on reducing intensity on the western edge of the fire, dropping a total of 250,000 gallons of water. Through today, fire behavior is expected to be moderate and is expected to roll out the flank of the north of Mount Brown. Prior evacuation orders do remain in place between the foot of Lake McDonald and Logan Pass as these firefighting efforts continue. Structure protection work in the Lake McDonald Lodge area continues also. A rain for rent system is now up and running. The irrigation system is set along the Snyder Creek and the Lake McDonald Lodge area. Regular Rainburg sprinkler heads and parallel to the Going to the Sun Highway, a 6-inch pipe is pumping about 700 gallons of water a minute from Lake McDonald up to the Going to the Sun Highway. Fire managers say their goal is to stop the fire at the Going to the Sun Road and not allow it to come to the side of the lodge. If it does reach the lodge area, managers are using the system to get fuel moistures to increase the point where they are totally unavailable to burn.
What we are doing here is we're wetting all of these fuels down. We're increasing that moisture content so that they're basically unavailable to burn. They won't support combustion. So we can have an ember land on it, but because they're wet, basically they won't ignite.
Ann Smith says they have fire management action points set up and down to the Going to the Sun Road to Logan Pass. If the fire edges reaches a management action point, that will trigger the activation of additional assistance from the local fire departments. Fire activity increased throughout the day on the West Fork fire near Libby, growing to more than 13,000 acres. Fire managers say that the DC-10 air tanker is being used to drop retardant just north of Mount Tom. This retardant line helps to slow the fire growth and allow equipment crews to improve the primary containment lines. The fire spot was activated by the Air Attack Group supervisor near Gold Hill, approximately 6 miles east of Loon Lake. 2 heavy air tankers were able to box the spot fire in with retardant. And what's next is that there is a community meeting tonight about the West Fork fire at the Thompson Lake Christian Retreat Center in Libby at 6 p.m. The Caribou Fire, burning 18 miles northwest of Eureka, is sitting at nearly 20,000 acres. Firefighters focused on the south and southwest sides of the fire yesterday, continuing firefight construction and engaging direct attack when possible near Lime Creek. All areas of West Kootenai remain under a pre-evacuation warning, including West Kootenai north and south of Tule Lake, Spring Creek, Dodge Creek, and Basin Creek. The lightning-sparked blaze has already destroyed several structures and homes. Authorities have released the names of 2 people whose bodies were found in the basement of Strand Avenue home in August. Missoula County Sheriff TJ McDermott says identities of the victims are 15-year-old Marilyn Pickett and 24-year-old Jackson Wiles. The Montana Department of Justice had issued a missing and endangered person advisory for Pickett on August 17th, saying that he had last been seen in the company of Wiles. The bodies had been placed into plastic tubs filled with chemicals, with an initial investigation indicating that Pickett and Wiles died from stab wounds. Their bodies were found on August 17th when police arrived at the home with a search warrant in connection with a reported home invasion burglary stabbing that occurred on July 23rd. 2 suspects identified as 23-year-old Tiffany Pierce and 26-year-old Augustus Standing Rock were taken into custody in connection with these murders. And first responders gathered at the state capitol today to remember those who lost their lives on September 11, 2001, and to honor those who rushed towards danger in service of others every day.
We're here to honor the people who died September 11, 2001. Many of us still remember where we were that day when the towers exploded, that we heard it on the radio. You knew what you were doing and you knew where you were. You knew the shock that you felt. You felt the disbelief that this couldn't be happening here.
The sacrifices that those men and women made on September 11th, 2001 should never be forgotten. And it's also to sort of memorialize the efforts that have gone on since then through the structural firefighting, the wildland efforts, the volunteers, everybody. That we just need to remember the sacrifices that they make.
Today and every day, let us vow to never forget the continued sacrifice of all those who serve and protect. Our state and our nation is safer and stronger because of this courage, commitment, and sacrifice. Every loss of life is heartbreaking and tragic, and we must keep all the men and women risking their lives in our thoughts.
And in other national news, Hurricane Irma pushes inland across Florida Monday as a tropical storm, creating severe flooding in parts of the state. The storm, which touched down yesterday as a Category 4 hurricane, caused widespread damage across Florida and leaving more than 6.5 million customers without power. Meg Oliver reports from Florida City.
Neighbors help rescue neighbors in Jacksonville, Florida, as historic floodwaters rage through the streets. Irma's storm surge overwhelmed St. Johns River.
This is potentially a week-long event with water and the tides coming and going.
Streets are also left underwater in Naples. Hurricane Irma first made landfall Sunday in the Florida Keys as a Category 4. A day later, mobile homes lay on their sides in Big Pine Key and roofs are missing. Some are thankful it wasn't worse.
See, I got the walls up. And we can always rebuild it.
Irma damaged some roads in the Keys, making them impassable. Residents hoping to get back home are forced to wait.
I'm not frustrated. I'm just upset at all this stuff that's happening to people, to us, to all of us. It's not frustrating, it's just sad.
Irma also caused devastation in Florida City, reducing buildings to rubble.
One of the biggest obstacles for residents returning home to survey the damage are downed trees like this one, blocking roads.
Downed trees are also a problem in Miami. Cars had to maneuver carefully around them.
People think it's back to normal. It's not back to normal.
People started removing fallen tree limbs in Fort Lauderdale, and crews began restoring electricity to the millions across the state who lost power. Meg Oliver, CBS News, Florida City.
And Irma's center began pushing into Georgia by midday, and Atlanta is under a tropical storm warning for the first time. More than 100,000 customers were without power there, and more than 80,000 are without power in South Carolina. Coming up on KAJ, meteorologist Russ Thomas will have the latest on the red flag warning and a forecast for your work week. Plus, we'll learn about a trail on the edge of Helena that leads to a century-old relic that helped build the capital city during its earlier days.